Hey everybody, it is that time of year again. The holidays are really fast approaching. It is now the end of September, very much the end of September. In fact, we're just about to start October, and wanted to give you some specific tips today to fine-tune your e-commerce website for the upcoming holiday season. Hey everybody, I'm Frank Blanchard AIFD, and yes, making those little adjustments to your e-commerce website can really make a difference. And I also want to give you a couple of things to be aware of and looking at on your website, depending on what kind of a platform you have your website hosted and managed with. So the first thing that I wanted to mention to you is, being at the start of October, now is really kind of the optimum time to really be fine-tuning your website prior to the holiday season. Kind of charging up your website ahead of time, ready to go, so that when it's time to really switch over to holiday items for your Florist e-commerce website, and actually for any small business with an e-commerce website, if you're doing any kind of Christmas, holiday, promotional stuff, now's the time to get those products onto your website, not necessarily visible, but at least so they're on there, and you can be working on all of your digital text content that's got your ranking keywords in it to make sure that you get the most traffic you possibly can during the holiday season. In addition to that, one of the best ways to get additional content on your website and text content with all of those prime keywords for the holiday season for what you happen to have to sell is within blog posts on your website. If you do have a blog as part of your website, now's one of the prime times to be using it. Included in those blog posts, if you can include pictures and also the direct links to specific items you're going to have on your website or do have on your website for sale for the holiday season, if you can include those links within your blog post, that actually enhances your overall sitemap for your website. And when the search engines are crawling your website for answers to people's search query, that's going to help immensely. So be thinking of that. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you, and this is something that I actually ran across when I was working on one of my clients' websites this week. And that is having to do with the meta titles and the meta descriptions of the different items on your website. Now, for florists with an e-commerce website, this is something that you possibly can check on yourself, or you might have to contact your tech support to get it checked on, just in case you don't actually have access to managing the meta titles and meta descriptions of the items on your websites. That's something that's different with every single platform. Some platforms you actually have the ability to access those things and can edit them. Other platforms, you don't have access to it. But why this is really important, and this is especially important if you are doing any Google ads or AdWord campaigns during the holiday season. If the targeted keyword that you want to focus on is really going to get traction, you need to make sure that, one, that keyword is included in the first sentence or two of your meta description. And it also helps a lot if you can manage to get that keyword as part of the meta title of that item and that page for your website. If you can do those two things, that's gonna help you out immensely for those ads if you happen to be running any. Now, what is also important about the meta titles and meta descriptions is when somebody does a Google search, or when you do a Google search for something and you get your search results back when Google or whatever search platform you're using is giving you the results of your query, what shows up in that information for your business as a florist when somebody's searching for your products or services? What comes up for them along with your listing for your domain, for your website, is the meta title and what would be called a rich snippet. And that rich snippet is basically the first 2, maybe 3 sentences of your meta description. So that's why it's really important to make sure that the information from the items on your Florist e-commerce website, that your description is spot on and you've got enough content in there, because if you don't have access to the meta description and title, the tech support people for your platform are going to take your description for the item and they're basically going to do an abbreviated version of it for your meta description. Now, depending on time of year and all of that, it's busy. So they'll do that to a certain extent, but some of it's really kind of dependent on you making sure that that information is correct and accurate. Now, what the search engines do not like when it comes to your meta titles and meta descriptions is when it gets duplicated, or you just get multiple versions of the same exact meta title and meta description. That actually works against you and does not help, and in fact, it's kind of overall just a bad thing when it comes to SEO and your Florist e-commerce website. And this is the tip, not really a tip, but something that I want you to be aware of, because you might want to check on it. And really the only way you would know if this might be happening for you is to have an audit done of your website. The audit will be what actually tells you whether you have duplications of meta titles and meta descriptions. So, this is the one thing that I wanted to point out to you, and the problem that I had working on this one client's website this week. And it has nothing to do with the florist, and it really has nothing to do with the platform that they have their website with. However, it just has mainly to do with more of the hardware aspects of their website and how it works. So for florists and e-commerce websites, You know, traditionally we have things listed on our website for just in general items available. Then we also have our websites oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes set up so that people can shop your website by category or occasion. So people can shop for birthday flowers. They can shop for get well flowers. They can shop for sympathy flowers, etc. And what's been kind of typical for e-commerce florists is to have, you might have an item that's got some roses in it, maybe a variety of different things, but it's something that could be sold for any of those occasions. So you list them all in all of those different occasions on your website. Now, this is where I want you to just kind of double check things, and you might want to run a web audit if you can, or check with your tech support people just to make sure everything's kind of spot on. And that is, for certain platforms, if you have the ability to edit the items on your website and all of the descriptions of the items on your website and the name and the prices, etc. Once you do that, if you then add that item to other categories, some platforms, not all, but some platforms, the way their websites are set up for what's called Conical Links, which is basically when you have one item and it can be sold under different categories and listed under different categories. It can, depending on the platform again, when you add it to the different categories, depending on how your website's set up, it might actually, instead of just linking to the original page, it might inadvertently create a separate new page for every single category you add that first one item that you created. It will add an additional page for that item for all of those other occasions that you add it to. Now, where the problem arises is if the meta title and the meta description do not get changed for each of those additional categories. If that changes for each additional category and your platform does actually generate an additional page for that item for each individual category, what can happen is you get duplications and copies of the original meta title and meta description that you had on your first listing of that item. And that's what the search engines do not like, is all of the duplications of the description and the name of that item. So, as an example, if you have a website that has, say, maybe 80 different items on your website, I would say, and I usually suggest to people, shoot for having like 125 items on your website, maybe 200 max, and that's it. And this is where you can really run into problems. If you have all of those items, and then you also have those items listed for availability in all of your different categories, you can end up with each item on your website actually generating 5 or 6 different additional pages that then end up having the same meta title and meta description on it. So that's where you can run into a big problem. So you want to scale it down. Don't list everything in every single category. And make sure that you don't have any duplications of your meta titles and meta descriptions. Because if you do, it'll totally mess things up. So that's my little tip for you today, to fine-tune your websites for the holiday season coming up that's fast approaching, because the closer we get to Halloween and the end of October, people are going to be starting to search for Christmas and holiday related things. And since we are at the start of October now in 2020, I believe it's the 12th and 13th that Amazon is doing kind of their first big holiday push for advertising and marketing. So if you can kind of use that as a gauge for getting your own website primed and ready to go, that would be a good thing for you, so that you get the maximum benefit and traffic for a really good bustling holiday season. I hope you found that information helpful today, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. That helps me out a lot. And if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, that would be great. If you'd like notifications when I do upload new content for you, by all means hit that bell icon down below. And Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are my usual upload days. And I'm playing around with getting some new content created for you that I'll upload on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is specifically more creative design related topic. So until next time, be well everybody. Do something creative today, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.